Since my teenage years, I've had a deep fascination with cross-dressing. Skirts and tights have always intrigued me, even from a young age. The first time I secretly slipped into my mother's pantyhose, everything shifted. The desire to dress as a girl became overwhelming. I began sneaking into the laundry room to try on her dresses, pantyhose, and skirts whenever I could. Each time I dressed in her clothes, my longing to become a girl only grew stronger. I'd often found myself fantasizing about being transformed into a girl and living that way permanently. Coming from a deeply religious family, I never found the courage to confess my desire to crossdress to my parents. I knew they would never understand. So I kept my urges hidden, dressing in secret whenever the opportunity arose. There were a few close calls, particularly with my mom, when I was dressed in her clothes, but fortunately, I was never caught in the act. When I started college, I threw myself into sports, hoping to suppress my feminine side. I moved in with a male friend, and for several years, I stopped cross-dressing entirely. Although the urge would occasionally surface, I resisted every time. After college, I landed an internship at a software firm, where I met a beautiful woman named Grace. We started dating, and after a few months, decided to move in together. Living together was great, and with both of us earning good money, life seemed to be going well. One afternoon, I arrived home earlier than usual, and with the heat of the day, I decided to take a shower. As I was undressing in the bathroom, I noticed Grace's panties lying on the floor, a delicate pink lace pair with a cute bow in the front. An intense urge suddenly swept over me, and I couldn't resist it. I picked them up and slowly slipped them on, my body trembling with excitement. In that moment, everything rushed back, the feelings I had long suppressed, the thrill of wearing panties. Knowing I had some time alone, I wrapped myself in a robe, still wearing the panties, and headed to the bedroom. Opening Grace's closet, my heart raced with anticipation. The excitement surged as I browsed through her clothes, especially her panties and lingerie. After taking my time deciding, I finally selected a white padded bra and a black bodycon dress to wear. I quickly closed all the bedroom curtains, not wanting any chance of the neighbors catching a glimpse of me. After that, I took off my robe and put on the bra first. It was a bit snug, but I managed to fasten it. The straps felt amazing on my shoulders, and the padding gave me the illusion of having small breasts. The sensation of the bra pressing against my skin was intoxicating. Next, I slipped into the bodycon dress, and I absolutely loved how it hugged my figure. My body looked so much better in a dress than in my usual guy's clothes. Standing in front of the mirror, I was taken aback by my reflection. I blushed at the sight of myself, thrilled with how cute I looked dressed as a girl. I must have spent hours just standing there, posing and admiring myself. Every moment was pure bliss. As the sky darkened, I realized I had completely lost track of time and needed to change back before Grace came home. I quickly undressed, returned everything to its place, and hopped into the shower. Yet, even as I washed up, I couldn't shake the thoughts running through my mind. Why did I love dressing as a girl so much? What drew me so intensely to women's clothing? Afterward, a wave of shame crept over me for having worn Grace's clothes. I was torn, unsure whether I should confess to her what had happened earlier. When Grace finally arrived home, I was incredibly nervous. I couldn't decide if I should come clean about wearing her clothes or confess that I sometimes had this strong urge to dress as a girl. I knew revealing the truth could throw our whole relationship into turmoil. In the end, I decided to stay quiet and didn't cross-dress for the next couple of weeks. That was until one day, Grace mentioned she was going out of town for her cousin's wedding for 3 to 4 days. The thought of having a few days alone filled me with excitement. I felt the urge to dress up again, and this time it felt like the perfect opportunity to live as a girl for a few days. I decided it would be the last time I indulged in this, but I was determined to enjoy every moment of it. With Grace preoccupied with the wedding preparations, I had plenty of time to plan everything just right. Since Grace's clothes were too small for me, I figured online shopping would be the best way to get what I needed. I spent hours browsing clothing stores online, captivated by the endless options for women's clothes. There were so many choices, and I often lost track of time as I imagined myself in different outfits, carefully planning how I would spend those days dressed fully as a girl. After hours of browsing, I finally made my purchases: a matching bra and panty set, a lace wig, high heels, 2 dresses, sheer pantyhose, and even breast forms. Everything arrived within the next few days, and I carefully hid the packages in the garage, feeling a surge of excitement for what was to come. I couldn't wait for the moment when I could fully dress up, head to toe, and transform into the beautiful woman I envisioned. The big day finally arrived. I dropped Grace off at the airport, kissed her goodbye, and rushed back home, eager for the next few days of freedom. As soon as I got home, I went straight to the garage to retrieve the hidden items and brought them up to the bedroom. I unwrapped each piece, laying everything out carefully on the bed: the 2 dresses, bra, panty, wig, heels, breast forms, and pantyhose. Just organizing it all brought so much joy, but now it was time for the real fun to begin getting ready. I decided to shave my facial hair and legs. I wanted my skin to be as smooth as that of the gorgeous models I admired. I took a long shower, carefully shaved my face and legs, and then applied moisturizer all over. My skin felt soft and smooth, the perfect canvas for the transformation I had planned. Excitement coursed through me as I picked up the bra and panty. My hands trembled with anticipation as I slipped them on, instantly feeling a wave of femininity wash over me. Next, I inserted the breast forms into the bra's cups, and I was amazed at how realistic they looked and felt. I couldn't resist jiggling them a bit, delighted by how they moved. I was so glad I bought them. It made the experience feel so authentic. Then, I picked up the pantyhose and began putting them on slowly, savoring the sensation as they slid over my legs. I was careful not to rip them in my excitement, knowing how delicate they were. The feeling of the sheer fabric hugging my smooth legs was absolutely intoxicating. I carefully pulled the pantyhose all the way up without any tears, making some final adjustments to ensure they were smooth and perfect. The way they hugged my legs made them look so sexy, and the sensation of the sheer fabric against my freshly shaved skin was incredible. As I rubbed my legs together, the feeling was divine. Now it was time to choose a dress. I had 2 options: a leopard print bodycon dress with an attached black long-sleeve top and a white floral knee-length dress. After a moment of deliberation, I decided on the leopard print dress. As I slipped it on, I felt a rush. It fit like a dream, hugging my body in all the right places. It was a bit short, but that only added to the allure. I twirled in front of the mirror, admiring myself from every angle, and couldn't stop smiling. My body was now fully feminized, and I adored how feminine I looked and felt. The transformation was complete, and it was everything I had hoped for. It was time for the final touch: the hair wig and some makeup to complete my transformation. The wig came with a hair cap, so I carefully put the cap on first. Trying on the wig was more challenging than I had expected, as I had never worn one before. After a few struggles and adjustments, I finally managed to get it on properly. The moment I felt the long hair cascading over my shoulders, it was as if a whole new dimension had been added to my transformation. I looked into the mirror to make the final adjustments and was completely blown away by what I saw. I didn't look like myself anymore. I looked like a woman. The wig had such a powerful effect on my appearance, softening my features and giving me the feminine look I had always dreamed of. I couldn't stop staring at the reflection, finally seeing the woman who had been hiding inside me all this time. In that moment, I felt beautiful, strong, and confident. The feminine energy radiating from me was undeniable, and I was overwhelmed with joy. I had never felt so connected to this part of myself before, and it was an incredible, empowering feeling. I stood in front of the mirror for what felt like an eternity, just staring at my reflection, admiring, accepting, and embracing this new version of myself. It took time for everything to sink in, but once it did, I felt an overwhelming sense of happiness. It felt so right, and I had never felt so content with myself. Next, it was time for the heels. I had tried them on once before, just to check the fit, and they had been perfect. Now, I sat down and slipped them on again. They were beautiful, and the way they added so much glamour to my feet and legs, especially with the pantyhose, was beyond anything I had anticipated. I stood up, took a deep breath, and took my first few steps as a woman. Each step was filled with grace, excitement, and a feeling of liberation. The sensation of walking in heels, the click of them against the floor, felt thrilling and elegant. The entire experience, transforming into a woman, was far more intense and fulfilling than I had ever imagined. I was so grateful that I had decided to dress up. Otherwise, I would never have known how deeply empowering and amazing it felt. At that moment, I no longer felt like a guy. I felt like a beautiful woman, and the sense of freedom and joy was indescribable. I walked around the bedroom for a few minutes, enjoying the feel of my new self and getting used to walking in heels. Each step was exhilarating, and the more I moved, the more comfortable I felt. After a while, it was time for the next step: makeup. I had watched plenty of YouTube tutorials to prepare for this moment, and I was excited to finally put my skills to the test. I headed to Grace's dressing table and opened her makeup kit. It had everything I needed, but I didn't want to overdo it. My goal was simple: just enough makeup to soften my features and minimize the more masculine aspects of my face. I started with some moisturizer, but as I applied it, my hair kept falling in the way, making it difficult to work. I hadn't anticipated this little challenge, but after glancing around, I spotted a couple of Grace's hair clips. I grabbed one and used it to clip my hair back out of my face. Problem solved, and now I was ready to continue. With my hair out of the way, I proceeded through the makeup steps, feeling both focused and excited. Each brushstroke brought me closer to the complete transformation, and I couldn't wait to see the final result. After applying the moisturizer, I reached for the foundation. I didn't want to overdo it, so I applied a light layer and carefully blended it across my face with a beauty blender. Watching Grace do this so many times had definitely helped. I knew how to get the right amount and blend it smoothly. My face looked even and bright after applying the foundation, and I could already see how it was softening my features. Next came the eyeliner. I knew this would be a bit trickier, but I was determined. I grabbed Grace's liquid eyeliner, which I hadn't used before. It turned out to be more challenging than I thought. I kept messing up, smudging the line or getting it uneven. Each time, I had to wipe it off with tissues and redo the foundation around my eyes. It was frustrating, but I kept at it. Finally, after several attempts, I managed to draw decent eye lines. The difference was incredible. My eyes now looked so much more feminine, and I loved the way they turned out. It felt like a small victory, and seeing how beautiful and soft my eyes looked filled me with pride. Each step was bringing me closer to the woman I had imagined, and it was amazing to witness. The final touch was lipstick, and I found myself staring at Grace's huge collection, unsure which shade to choose. After some thought, I decided to go with a light pink lip gloss. It felt soft and feminine, perfect for my look. I might have applied a little too much, but I loved how glossy and attractive my lips appeared, shimmering in the light. With the lip gloss on, my transformation was complete. I stood back and admired my reflection, feeling incredibly proud of what I had accomplished. Considering it was my first time wearing makeup, I was pretty happy with how everything turned out. My face looked smooth, my eyes were soft and feminine, and my lips had that perfect shine. I felt like I did a decent job, and seeing myself like this was almost unbelievable. I never would have imagined that I could look so beautiful, so much like a woman I had always wanted to see in the mirror. The whole experience of trying makeup was lovely. It made me feel radiant, confident, and like I was truly glowing from within. As I looked around Grace's dressing table, my eyes landed on her jewelry box. I couldn't resist taking a peek, and inside I found an array of cute necklaces, earrings, and bracelets. I picked out a delicate necklace that would complement my look and spotted a pair of clip-on earrings that I remembered seeing Grace wear before. With a little excitement, I put them on, and I couldn't believe how these small touches instantly elevated my appearance. It was incredible how much style and femininity these simple accessories added. Feeling thrilled with my look, I reached for one of Grace's perfumes, carefully choosing a scent that felt just right. With a few spritzes, the fragrance enveloped me, making me feel even more womanly and beautiful. It was like the final touch of elegance that brought everything together. Now, I truly felt like my transformation was complete. I loved how I looked. Everything seemed to come together perfectly, from the makeup to the jewelry and the scent lingering around me. As I glanced through the drawer one last time, making sure I hadn't missed anything, I noticed a box of press-on nails. A new wave of excitement hit me. Could I make my look even more perfect? I couldn't resist the urge to try them on. I thought, why not go all the way? And decided to apply the press-on nails. Having seen Grace do it many times, I had a good idea of the process, and before long, my nails were done. They looked absolutely gorgeous, polished, feminine, and perfect for completing the look. With everything set, I unclipped my hair and let the wig fall naturally around my shoulders. I loved how the hair felt, so flowy and full of life. After making a few final adjustments, I stood up and walked over to the full-length mirror. The reflection staring back at me was almost unrecognizable. I couldn't believe how stunning I looked, gorgeous as a woman. I felt radiant, and I could have easily stood there for hours just admiring my reflection, amazed by the transformation. Then, reality set in as my stomach growled, reminding me that I hadn't eaten anything. I was so focused on getting ready that time had completely slipped away from me. Glancing at my watch, I was shocked to see that nearly 4 hours had passed. I quickly put on my watch to keep track of time, not wanting to lose myself in the excitement again. It had been an incredible journey of self-discovery, and every moment of that transformation felt like a dream come true. Now, it was time to refuel and savor the experience. Stepping out of the bedroom in my new attire felt surreal. The sound of my heels clicking against the floor with each step sent a rush of excitement through me, making the experience of walking as a woman feel so real and exhilarating. There was a mixture of nervousness and thrill as I moved through the house. Every movement, every sound felt new and exciting, as though I was truly living in this beautiful feminine version of myself. When I reached the kitchen, I opened the fridge and grabbed some leftover pizza, along with a soda. As hungry as I was, I made a conscious effort to eat slowly, savoring each bite and trying to bring out my most graceful, feminine mannerisms. It felt important to embrace the whole experience, even in the simple act of eating. I imagined how a lady would delicately take her time, and I tried to mirror that in my movements. Once I was full and energized, I felt a surge of motivation to capture this special moment. The idea of taking photos and videos came to mind. I wanted to document this transformation, to remember how amazing I felt. So I headed back to the bedroom, grabbed my phone and tripod, and set everything up. I started taking pictures and recording videos, posing and moving in front of the camera, capturing all the angles and details of my look. It felt empowering and exhilarating to see myself on camera, fully embracing this feminine side of me. It was a way to cherish the experience and hold on to the confidence and beauty I was feeling in that moment. As a guy, I never really enjoyed taking pictures of myself, but now that I was dressed as a woman, it was a completely different experience. I loved it. Posing and modeling in front of the camera was so much fun. I felt confident, beautiful, and alive in ways I hadn't before. Time flew by, and when I checked the clock, I realized an hour had already passed. My feet were starting to feel sore from wearing the heels, but I didn't want to take them off. It was part of the whole experience, and I wanted to stay in character as long as possible. I sat down to rest and started going through the photos and videos I had taken. Most of them turned out so well, and I felt proud of how I looked and how far I had come with this transformation. Suddenly, my phone rang, startling me. It was Grace. My heart raced, and I froze for a moment, nervous about what she might say. I just pray she wouldn't ask for a video call. With a deep breath, I answered the call, trying to keep my voice calm. As we talked, the excitement I had for the next few days began to fade. Grace explained that there had been an emergency at work, and she was coming back the next evening. I felt a wave of disappointment crash over me. I had planned on having more time to fully immerse myself in this experience. But I tried to respond calmly, saying, "Okay," and listening as she shared stories about the wedding she was attending. Even though I was trying to stay engaged in the conversation, my mind was racing, distracted by the thought that my personal time was coming to an unexpected end. After we hung up, I sat there quietly, processing everything. Though I was bummed that my time was cut short, I knew I had to make the most of the time I still had left. After the call with Grace ended, frustration lingered, but I knew I had to make the best of the situation. I thought hard about what I could do next, and then a thrilling idea hit me: why not go out into the backyard and record myself there? The thought of being in the open, even in the privacy of my own yard, made my heart race with excitement. It was a totally new and daring experience, and the rush that came with it gave me a shiver of excitement all over again. I decided to make it a little more adventurous. I grabbed the tripod, my phone, and headed toward the backyard. Our yard is quite private, surrounded by tall fences that make it difficult for the neighbors to see anything. Still, as I stood at the back door, my heartbeat quickened. What if the neighbors somehow saw me? The thought of being caught in my feminine attire filled me with both fear and excitement. Would I be in trouble? Would they recognize me? For a moment, I almost backed out, thinking maybe it was a bad idea. But something inside me, maybe the thrill of the moment, maybe the desire to make the most of my remaining time, pushed me forward. It was now or never. This was likely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I wasn't going to let it slip away. With a deep breath, I opened the door and stepped into the backyard. The cool air brushed against my skin, amplifying the feeling of freedom and exhilaration. The adventure was about to begin. The moment I stepped outside, the rush hit me like a wave. Unlike anything I have felt before, it was as if every sense in my body was heightened. I felt vulnerable, exposed to the world in a way I'd never experienced, yet thrilled by it all the same. I scanned the yard nervously, half expecting a neighbor to appear or some noise to signal that I had been seen, but everything was still and quiet. I quickly set up my tripod and phone, determined to take some photos and videos before the feeling of vulnerability overwhelmed me. As I started recording, it felt like I was being watched, even though I knew logically that I was alone. My senses were on full alert, my eyes darting around, my ears picking up the faintest sounds. But there was no one. I was completely alone, yet the sensation was electric, keeping me on edge. After a few minutes, I felt my confidence slowly returning. The initial tension began to ease, and I embraced the moment. The thrill of being outside, even just in my own backyard, dressed fully as a woman, was liberating in a way I hadn't expected. It was an incredible experience to be out in the open, expressing this part of myself in a space that felt new and exciting. I started to enjoy it more and more, taking countless pictures and videos, capturing this unique moment of self-expression. The fear was replaced with joy and gratitude that I had the opportunity to experience my feminine side so fully. The whole time, I felt a mix of freedom and exhilaration, like I had crossed some invisible boundary, letting myself explore something I had always wanted. Before I knew it, another hour had passed. I looked at my watch, surprised at how quickly time flew by, but feeling content and fulfilled with everything I had just experienced. It was a memory I knew I would treasure forever. As I sat there in the backyard, soaking in the emotions and the intensity of the moment, I didn't want it to end. Every feeling, every sensation was so vivid. I was trying to capture it all in my mind, preserving the memory of how free and alive I felt. But the rush I had from being outside in the backyard wasn't enough. My mind started wandering toward the next step, what could be more adventurous. And then it hit me, going out in public. The idea alone sent a wave of adrenaline through me. It felt like something had come over me at that moment, a realization that I had to do it. I didn't care about anything else, about being seen, about the risks. The rush of excitement was simply too strong to ignore. This would be the ultimate feminine experience, the real test of fully expressing this side of myself. Without a second thought, I hurried back into the house, straight to the bedroom. I grabbed one of Grace's purses and put my phone and house keys inside. Then, to be a bit cautious in case the neighbors did catch a glimpse of me, I pulled out an overcoat from Grace's wardrobe. The coat would provide some cover, making me look less conspicuous while I walked outside. With everything in place, I stood in front of the mirror one last time. I felt a mix of nervousness and excitement, my heart racing, but my mind clear. This was it. I was about to take the biggest step in embracing my feminine side. With the purse in hand and the overcoat on, I was ready to step out into the world. With the car keys clutched in my hand, I reached the front door, my nerves buzzing with anticipation. I took a quick peek through the window to scan the street for any signs of neighbors or passers-by. Nothing. The street was empty, quiet, as if it was waiting for me to take this next step. This was it. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart, and stepped outside. The cool air hit me, adding to the rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins. My heart pounded in my chest, loud and fast, but I kept my focus on the car, my target. Every step from the front door to the car felt like an eternity, as though the distance stretched out far longer than it actually was. It was like walking on a tightrope, where every second felt like I was teetering between fear and exhilaration. I couldn't shake the feeling that a million eyes were on me, even though I knew logically that I was alone. My senses were on high alert, but I kept moving, each step quicker than the last, until finally I reached the car. I fumbled with the keys for a moment before unlocking the door and slipping inside. The second I shut the door behind me, it felt like a protective barrier came down. Inside the car, I felt more secure, hidden from the world, and a wave of relief washed over me. I glanced around the street, reassuring myself that there was no one there, no curious neighbors peering out from behind curtains. But I knew I couldn't linger. If I stayed too long, someone might notice me sitting there. So I took another deep breath, put the key in the ignition, and started the car. As the engine roared to life, so did the thrill inside me. Pulling away from the curb and driving down the quiet street, I felt an overwhelming mix of fear and freedom. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, but there was a smile on my face, a genuine, unstoppable smile. It was the most intense, daring thing I had ever done, but it felt absolutely incredible. Once I was safely out of my neighborhood, I pulled over and quickly removed the overcoat, revealing my full feminine look. Just as I was adjusting myself in the mirror, I saw headlights approaching from the distance, and for a second, my heart nearly stopped. It was my first public encounter, and the reality of being seen by someone while dressed as a woman hit me like a shockwave. My hands trembled uncontrollably. Instinctively, I leaned over, pretending to search for something on the passenger seat, using it as a shield to cover my face from the passing car. As the vehicle passed by, I exhaled a long, shaky sigh of relief, my body still trembling. But I couldn't stop now. The rush was too intense, too addictive. I decided to keep going. The nearby departmental store came to mind, one that didn't attract much traffic since a new mall had opened nearby. It felt like the perfect, low-risk destination for my little adventure. Driving in heels, though, was no joke. Every time another car passed, I freaked out a bit, my anxiety spiking each time. But amidst the panic, there was something thrilling, almost euphoric, about it. I loved the excitement, the uncertainty of it all. I did my best to avoid eye contact with anyone driving by, focusing on the road, trying to act natural. Slowly, I began to get used to this strange, wonderful feeling of being out in the world like this. When I finally reached the parking lot of the store, I was relieved to see only one car parked there. I knew deep down that actually going inside the store would be pushing my luck too far. There was no way I wouldn't get found out. But the excitement of just being there, dressed as I was enough for me. So, I took out my phone and decided to capture the moment. Clicking a few photos inside the car, documenting the experience, I felt a surge of pride and satisfaction. It wasn't the grand public outing I had imagined, but it was a huge step for me nonetheless. With a smile on my face and a phone full of new memories, I decided it was time to head back home. Just as I was about to relax, a car suddenly pulled into the lot and parked right near me. My heart stopped. I froze, not daring to look over. I could feel the panic rising again, the fear of being seen by someone this close. My body stiffened, and I instinctively grabbed my phone, pretending to be engrossed in something on the screen. My heart was racing as I waited, trying not to make any sudden movements. After a few tense seconds, I heard footsteps. Slowly, I gathered the courage to glance up, and to my relief, it was an elderly woman, walking slowly toward the store. I let out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. That was close. I knew in that moment that I had pushed the limits of my comfort zone. I didn't want any more close encounters with people today. Without wasting any more time, I started the car and decided it was best to drive back home. But as I was driving, the thrill of the day still pulsed through me. I wasn't quite ready for the experience to be over just yet, so I found an empty road and parked. This time, I got out of the car, pretending to check the tires, just for an excuse to be outside again. The moment I stepped out, I felt the wind brushing against my pantyhose-clad legs, my hair dancing in the breeze. It was exhilarating, a feeling of freedom unlike any I had experienced before. I soaked in the moment, savoring the sensation of being out in the open like this. But just as I was starting to truly enjoy it, the sound of an approaching car startled me. My heart leaped, and without thinking, I jumped back into the car, once again pretending to search for something in the passenger seat until the car passed by. I couldn't help but laugh at myself afterward. This mix of fear and excitement was becoming a pattern. As I drove home, I thought about how much more it would take to get used to encounters like these, to fully embrace being out in public as myself without the constant rush of fear. But even with the nerves, today was a big step forward. It was thrilling, intense, and wonderful all at once. And I knew that with time, it would only get easier. As I slipped the overcoat back on and began the drive home, a sense of calm washed over me. The ride back was unlike anything I had ever experienced. There was a certain joy in it, as if I was seeing the world through new eyes. Every curve in the road, every breeze through the window felt more vibrant, more alive. It was like I was truly living in the moment for the first time, embracing a part of myself I had kept hidden for so long. But as I neared my neighborhood, that familiar rush of anxiety started to creep back in. My heart pounded, hoping there weren't any neighbors out as I pulled into my street. The relief I felt when I saw the empty driveways was immense. I parked the car as close to the front door as possible, not wanting to take any chances. In one swift motion, I gathered my things and made a run for it, unlocking the door as fast as I could and slipping inside. Once the door clicked shut behind me, a wave of relief and satisfaction hit. For the first time that day, my mind and body relaxed, no longer on high alert. I leaned against the door, letting out a long breath, and realized I had done it. I had stepped out into the world as the woman I had always felt inside, and I had loved every thrilling, terrifying, beautiful moment of it. As I stood there in my quiet home, a big, uncontrollable smile spread across my face. What had started as just another day had turned into the most significant day of my life. I had crossed a boundary, broken through a fear, and it was a feeling I would never forget. A day out as a woman, and it was everything I had dreamed of and more. And deep down, I knew this was just the beginning of many more adventures to come.